And away we go. Episode 1315 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Thursday, April 30th, 2026, the day after the emergence of more notable comments from the Washington Wizards' Anthony Davis. He was on a YouTube show, Glass Half Full, with Craig Melvin of NBC's Today Show. The show was published on April 28th. Davis, during his season-ending press conference on April 13th, said a lot of good things about the Wizards, but also said that he wants to know the plan and that it's hard to quickly go from really bad to really good, as he pretty clearly wants to win now. The Wizards in the 2025-2026 regular season went an NBA worst 17-65, but of course were tanking. Well, Davis on Glass Half Full again said that it's hard to quickly go from really bad to really good. Here was an exchange between Craig Melvin and Anthony Davis.
How hard is it for a really good player to play for a really bad team?
That's the thing, right? So I had this, and everybody knows this. I told the owner this. I told GM, everybody, media. Like, when you're looking at the Washington Wizards, right, from the outside looking in, you're like, everybody's right, you know? But when you get into the organization and see how great of an organization it is, like the owner is amazing. Obviously, the city is, DC is amazing. We are a very bad basketball team.
Yeah.
For sure. On the flip side, I think it's very tough to go from bad team to like a championship contender. It takes time.
Yes.
And that's with anybody. I mean,
Yes.
it could be a team, you know, who's just won and just like not good. So it takes time. It takes a couple of years, you know.
So Anthony Davis again said a lot of nice things about the Wizards and again said that it's hard to quickly go from really bad to really good, and he isn't wrong. He wants to know the plan. That's understandable. He wants to win now. That's understandable. Does he want out? That's the question. How likely is it that the Wizards trade Anthony Davis without him ever playing a single game for the team? He did not play in any of the team's 33 games, off it acquiring him via trade this past February 5th, what was 2026 NBA trade deadline day. He was listed as being out due to a finger sprain on his left hand. Davis is under contract through next season, but as we have come to know, NBA contracts for star players mean next to nothing in terms of teams having control of those players. Next season will be Davis's age 33 season. The remaining salaries on his contract per Hoops Hype next season, $58.457 million. And then he has a player option for the 2027-2028 season, a $62.787 million player option. Honestly, if he doesn't want to be here, trade him, okay? I, as a Wizards fan, would not be broken up by Anthony Davis no longer being on the team. The guy seemingly is never healthy, but he, when healthy, still can play. And, you know, with the Wizards now presumably done with tanking, Davis, even if he's only healthy for some of next season, could be a big help to the team getting to the playoffs. And yes, I did say Wizards and playoffs in the same sentence, but think about the team. Anthony Davis, Trae Young, Bilal Coulibaly, Alex Sarr, Keyshawn George, Bub Carrington, Trey Johnson, Will Riley, whoever the Wizards get in the 2026 NBA draft. Yeah, our team could be a playoff team next season. Hello and welcome to this Thursday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. Will the Washington Commanders be a playoff team this coming NFL season? I hope so. But next segment, the first of two conversations on episodes of this podcast with our good friend, Washington Commanders analyst Mark Bullock of Bullock's Film Room, which you can find at markbullock.substack.com, as we get his all-22 style analysis of what Washington did in the 2026 NFL draft. The next segment is going to provide breakdowns of the two defensive players who Washington took in the draft, Ohio State linebacker Sonny Styles and Tennessee edge defender Joshua Josephs, including how Mark sees new Washington defensive coordinator Daronte Jones using Styles, the extent to which Styles can excel in pass coverage, what the drafting of Styles means for linebackers Leo Chenal, Frankie Luvu, and Jordan Magee, and how Josephs needs work, but also offers extreme upside. Mark Bullock, next segment on Sonny Styles and Joshua Josephs. And also on the show, I'll talk Washington Nationals. They on Wednesday night got a blowout win, a 14-2 win at the New York Mets in a game in which the Nats scored 7 runs in the top of the fourth. And also for the Nats in this game, a second consecutive impressive outing from starting pitcher Cade Cavalli. 2 runs in 6 innings, 10 strikeouts. No game for the Baltimore Orioles on Wednesday. Their game against the Houston Astros at Oriole Park at Camden Yards was rained out. And so we have the O's and Astros with a doubleheader on Thursday, a traditional single admission doubleheader beginning on Thursday afternoon at 12:35 for games 2 and 3 of a 3-game series. So the Orioles starting pitchers for the doubleheader. Game 1, Chris Bassett. Game 2, Brandon Young. And speaking of Orioles starting pitchers, the team on Wednesday evening announced having put struggling starting pitcher Trevor Rogers on the 15-day injured list, retroactive to April 26th. This due to illness, and announced having recalled relief pitcher Cameron Foster from AAA Norfolk. But the O's now have the following guys on injured list: third baseman / second baseman Jordan Westberg, second baseman Jackson Holliday, first baseman Ryan Mountcastle, outfielder Heston Kjerstad, starting pitchers Trevor Rogers, Dean Kramer, and Zach Eflin, and relief pitchers Felix Bautista, Dietrich Enns, Yarmil Geraldo, and Colin Selby. A whopping 11 players on injured lists in this, a third consecutive season in which the O's are getting hammered by injury. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. And if you on Apple Podcasts, give the podcast a 5-star rating. I on the podcast will read whatever you write in writing a review of the podcast. And what you write could be a sports take. In other words, you don't just have to write about the podcast. From Redskin Ray on Apple Podcasts, writes Redskin Ray: Al gave great insight in the lead up to the draft and after. Knowledge is unquestionable. Listen every day when I can, and if I miss, I can catch up by listening when I cut the grass for 2 hours. Love the show on Insight for all sports related to DC. Well, thank you very much for that, Redskin Ray. You must have some lawn, Redskin Ray. 2-hour grass cutting sessions, but I'm always interested in when and how people listen to the podcast. So thank you for that on cutting the grass. I have to admit, I now do the thing of, after I cut the grass, looking out a window and admiring my work. Do you do that? Now, I do not do the cliche dad thing of making other people admire my work. I do not do that. I keep the admiration to myself. But yeah, I now do the thing of, after I cut the grass, looking out a window and admiring my work. I find myself doing that now. From 360 on Apple Podcasts, writes 360: Hi, Al. Love the podcast. Love the hard work you put into giving us a great product every single weekday, and the scheduled emergency ones also. Really appreciate your detailed analysis of all of my favorite local sports teams. Keep up all of the great work. Well, thank you very much for that, 360. Yeah, for anyone who missed it, a scheduled emergency installment of the podcast for this past Sunday, what was episode 1311, analysis of what the Washington Commanders did in rounds 2 through 7 of the 2026 NFL Draft. And regarding what Washington did in round 7, email from Neil Mullen on Washington taking Rutgers quarterback Ethan Kaliak-Manis in the 7th round. Writes Neil: Hey, Al. Thanks so much for demonstrating impressive endurance and pain tolerance in discussing the same 10 round 1 draft options for Washington for the last 4 months. Aside from the kids who were drafted this past weekend, I can't imagine there are many people happier to see the draft end than you. During your scheduled emergency broadcast, you said that no one knows how this kid from Rutgers will turn out. With respect, yes, we do. Since 2000, exactly 3 quarterbacks taken in a 7th round have started as many as 5 games. For every Brock Purdy, there are dozens of abject failures. There is absolutely nothing that suggests that this Rutgers kid is going to take a snap in a real game for the team, and every reason to believe that he won't. On the other hand, over this same period, more than 60 position players have started at least 6 games, and many, many more have been useful parts of rotations. I get that Hartman's time with Washington is likely over, and I know that you need someone to fill that third quarterback role, but the community of people with actual NFL experience who can hold a clipboard is large, and these people come cheap. Wasting a pick, even a 7th, on a guy who has effectively zero chance of making a difference for this team is a mistake. My rule: Only draft a quarterback who you think, with development and patience, has a legit chance to be the guy. Otherwise, buy used. Here's an idea for that 7th. Find some kid who can kick a 60-yard field goal and give him a shot, or draft a long snapper. That worked out great in the past. By the way, I otherwise thought the team had a strong draft, though time will tell. Thank you for the email, Neil. For the record, I did not say no one knows how this kid from Rutgers will turn out. I said, who knows if Ethan Kaliak-Manis will be any good in the NFL, but the team adding a QB3 option makes total sense. I don't know if what Neil wrote and what I actually said are that different, but I did want to point that out. And I stand by what I said. The QB3 position is significant, especially for a team for which the QB1 last regular season played in just 7 of 17 games due to getting injured 4 times. That said, what Neil said is fair. The notion of buying used regarding QB3s makes sense, but if the team likes Kaliak-Manis and didn't want to risk another team taking him, or didn't want to risk having to bid on him as an undrafted free agent, then taking him in the 7th round makes sense. Now, as is always the case, the evaluation better be right. If the team wasted a 7th round pick on a quarterback who can't play, that's not good because, yes, every pick in a draft matters, but it would be good for this team to have a long-term backup quarterback, either as a QB2 or QB3. And with the QB2 spot, Marcus Mariota one of these years may not sign. He now has signed a 1-year contract with Washington each of the last 3 Marches. So March 2024, March 2025, March 2026. He keeps doing these 1-year contracts pretty clearly because he wants to keep his options open. If he this coming March signs with another team, then it would be good to have a young quarterback like Ethan Kaliak-Manis as a QB2 option. Neil wrote that since 2000, exactly 3 7th-round quarterbacks have made at least 5 starts. Key point for sure, but what I would want to know is how many of the 7th-round quarterbacks since 2000 served as QB2s or QB3s. How many of the 7th-round quarterbacks were good enough to be on NFL rosters for multiple seasons, because that is what we're looking for from Ethan Kaliak-Manis. The idea isn't for Kaliak-Manis to start a bunch of games at any point. The idea is for him to be a capable backup quarterback, either as a QB3 or QB2. The other thing is that it does stand out that Washington took Kaliak-Manis over LSU quarterback Garrett Nussmeier. Washington took Kaliak-Manis with the number 223 overall pick. The Kansas City Chiefs took Nussmeier with the number 249 overall pick. I looked this up. ESPN NFL draft analyst Jordan Reed, he last May 1st came out with a mock 2026 NFL draft. So May 1st, 2025, Reed had Nussmeier being taken with the number 7 overall pick. Yeah, right where Washington took Sonny Styles. Nussmeier a year ago at this time was viewed as a potential top 10 pick. Washington could have had him at 223, but instead took Ethan Kaliak-Manis. Going to be interesting to look back on that. Hey, please consider subscribing to this podcast if you're not already doing that. Subscribing to the podcast costs nothing. Make sure that you never miss an episode and helps out the podcast a lot. And if you're already subscribing, thank you. Look, choosing life insurance is tricky. Heck, life insurance as a topic can be uncomfortable, but Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. You'll get your lowest rate from Ethos' network of trusted carriers. And know this, Ethos has a rating of 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 4,000 reviews. Take 10 minutes today to get covered with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/Al Galdi. That's ethos.com/Al Galdi. Ethos.com/Al Galdi. Application times may vary. Rates may vary.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack. But people don't understand, when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
We've all been there. You're away for the weekend, the big game is on, and you realize you're restricted from watching. Or maybe you're trying to check the latest lines on your betting app, but your local network is blocking the site. These are the ultimate unforced errors. You can prevent this from happening to you with IPVanish. IPVanish is the powerhouse VPN designed to keep you in the game no matter where you are. IPVanish helps you stay connected to your favorite team and streaming services while you travel, but it's not just about watching the game. For the bettors out there, IPVanish provides an extra layer of security and privacy that helps you access your account safely on public Wi-Fi. Plus, IPVanish is lightning fast, so you won't have to worry about lag during those crucial live betting moments. Right now, get a massive discount at IPVanish.com. That's IPVanish.com to get started today. Secure your play and go to IPVanish.com. Well, it is a pleasure to welcome back to the Al Galdi podcast Washington Commanders analyst Mark Bullock, with whom I have very much been looking forward to speaking regarding what our team did in the 2026 NFL Draft. Mark is exceptional at talking Commanders from an X's and O's standpoint. He does tremendous Commanders All-22 breakdowns. You can read his work on his Substack, Bullock's Film Room, which you can find at markbullock.substack.com. So much good content. Mark has written for The Athletic and for The Washington Post. He also is a Commanders fan. You could follow Mark on X at Mark Bullock NFL. And Mark is joining us for the first of two conversations. Our next conversation will be about the man who Washington took in the third round of the draft, Clemson receiver Antonio Williams. But we, on this installment of the podcast, are talking about the two defensive players who Washington took in the draft. Round 1, the number 7 overall pick, Ohio State linebacker Sonny Styles. Round 5, the number 147 overall pick, Tennessee edge defender Joshua Joseph. So Mark on his Substack has put up an extensive breakdown of each guy. April 24th, headline quote, what linebacker Sonny Styles brings to the Washington Commanders, end quote. April 29th, headline quote, what edge rusher Joshua Joseph brings to the Washington Commanders, end quote. Hey Mark, how are you?
Yeah, doing pretty well, thanks. How about you?
Doing well. Good to talk to you. And I want people to know, as you come to us from your residence in Sweden, you this past Thursday night, April 23rd, stayed up into the early morning hours of what for you was April 24th to see what Washington did with its number 7 overall pick in the draft.
Yep, yeah, and we're about 6 hours ahead of you guys on the East Coast. So your 8 p.m. primetime NFL draft slot starts at 2 a.m. for us. And even with the quicker picks, it was about 3 a.m. before Washington was on the clock and made their pick. So it was a late night and it was a late weekend, and I'm still trying to recover my sleep schedule. But these are the sacrifices we make to watch the NFL.
So in those early morning hours for you, were you as surprised as the rest of us were by Sonny Styles being available at 7?
Yeah, absolutely. I thought he'd probably go. I thought he was going to go 4 to the Titans. I thought that if they didn't take an edge rusher, I thought they'd take a middle linebacker with the link between Salah being there and how he'd used Fred Warner before, and people comparing Sonny Styles to Fred Warner. I thought that was a logical fit. If not there, I thought he'd go 5 to the Giants. So I didn't think he'd be there for Washington at 7. I was definitely surprised, but obviously pleasantly surprised, because I thought he'd probably if he was gonna be there, he'd be the best guy available.
All right, Washington's new defensive coordinator Daronte Jones. What do you think that he's thinking regarding how he'll use Sonny Styles?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways they could go with it. I think ultimately what they will probably do is they will just put him in as the Mike linebacker and let him develop into their version of a Fred Warner or a Bobby Wagner or whatever. Now in this defense, they don't necessarily have that one guy that just sits in the middle and doesn't blitz and kind of drops into coverage and that kind of thing. But the kind of two inside linebacker roles are kind of somewhat interchangeable, but the guy that plays the mic does have the green dot and make the calls and stuff. So I think that's probably where they will kind of end up putting him. But I think they could get very creative with him. Like if they wanted to, like he's super athletic, as we all know. If they wanted to, they could put him on the edge and have him become their version of Andrew Van Ginkel, where he's on the edge, dropping off into coverage, being a really smart, aware football player. I don't think that's what they'll do, but they could do that. And I think what we'll see is a guy that, has the range to line up in the A gaps and the B gaps on the line of scrimmage, showing these big cover zero looks, and then being able to drop off into coverage, cover up a huge amount of ground, and let them disguise the different kind of coverages that they want to do out of those looks. So I think that's kind of the pathway they'll go down with him, and I think they will be hoping that he can plug in as their Mike linebacker for the next decade.
Would you have Sonny Styles as Washington's green dot guy from day one?
I don't think you necessarily have to. I think that's where you want to go with him, and I think certainly he would get reps there. I think he's certainly capable of doing that. Like that, I believe he had the green dot at Ohio State, so I don't see why he couldn't do that. And it's not like they're in year 5 of this defensive system where they have an established Mike linebacker that's calling it, right? It was up in the air who was going to get that. So I think it will be Sonny Styles that gets it, but they don't necessarily have to if he's not ready for it right away. They could go in a different direction. They could give it to Chenal. They could give it to Luvu. They could give it to Magee, and let Sonny Styles come along slowly. But I think Styles is capable of taking it straight away.
You mentioned that you don't think that Daronte Jones will use Sonny Styles in the way that the defensive coordinator for Jones' previous employer, the Minnesota Vikings, Brian Flores, uses edge defender Andrew Van Ginkel. Why do you feel that way?
I think they've just got enough guys that could split out there. Like part of the Van Ginkel role that is really hard to fill is that Van Ginkel is actually a good pass rusher just off the edge on his own. Like if you just line him up and played him as an edge rusher, he's pretty good at that. He's not an amazing pass rusher, but he's pretty good at it. He's pretty competent at it. He was a defensive end in college, so he can rush the passer. The thing that puts him over the top is that he's very good dropping off into coverage. He's very aware. He's a super high football IQ guy. And he can drop into coverage and play the different coverage roles and is fluid enough as an athlete to do that. Now, I think Sonny Styles has the football IQ and the coverage skills to do that part of that role, but he's not someone that's had particularly a lot of experience rushing the passer, so he doesn't have the the skills, the hand fighting techniques, the different pass rushing moves, the understanding of a developed kind of rush plan to sequence these moves together to beat an offensive tackle consistently. So that's not the path I would go down with him. I would stick him in the middle and just say, you're our Mike linebacker. If you're going to rush, which like every linebacker in this defense will rush at certain points, it's going to be, we're going to get you matched up on running backs and you're going to be able to just kind of run over those guys rather than have to use a ton of different pass rush moves. And that will suit him a little bit more because, as I say, he doesn't have that developed pass rush plan because he's not had to do it. So I think that's where they'll go. They'll stick him in the middle rather than put him on the edge.
We last spoke on episode 1302 of this podcast. We, on that episode, discussed the big four out of Ohio State, the 4 guys who ended up being taken over the first 11 picks in the draft. And when we were talking about Sonny Styles, noted that it has been forever since Washington had a linebacker who excelled in pass coverage. As you on your Substack noted in your breakdown of Styles, quote, what makes Styles such an exciting linebacker prospect is that his athleticism and history of playing safety give him far more coverage ability than a typical linebacker prospect. He's very comfortable dropping into coverage in a variety of different schemes and to a variety of different spots on the field. End quote. Do you see it being the case that Styles from the get-go can be a quality linebacker in terms of pass coverage?
Yes, I do think that. I don't think he's going to be... I don't think in the traditional sense, if you think, okay, we've got a safety playing linebacker, we're going to match him up man-to-man on an athletic tight end, and he's going to wipe that guy out of the game. But that's not the kind of coverages that they're going to play, or at least if they're playing the kind of Brian Flores defense that we're expecting, that's not the kind of coverages they're going to play. What we saw with the Vikings last year was they'd show these aggressive blitz looks, and they would either go all-out blitz, and in which case those inside linebackers are rushing and keeping running backs and tight ends in to protect, Or they're dropping off into sort of zone coverages and match coverages. So they're not just playing straight up man to man. I think that's the one area of coverage that is somewhat of a weakness for him, not because he's necessarily bad at it, but because he's not experienced at it. They did a lot of spot drop zone and match stuff in college at Ohio State, so that's where he excels, and that's what he's going to be asked to do in Washington. So I think he has a really good understanding and awareness of zone and match concepts. He has his history as a safety helps him identify different route combinations and go, okay, I know this is a dagger concept, so I know that guy running up the seam is actually bait. I can pass him off to the safety. I know that there's that dig route coming in from the outside trying to attack that vacated space, so I'll peel off and match that and take that away. And you see things like that consistently from him. So I think if you're playing that kind of defense, which we're anticipating them doing, I think he can be a very good coverage defender straight away.
Much more with Mark Bullock in moments, but if you enjoyed this podcast, check out BGO Blind Pig, the official podcast of BGObsession.com. BGO Blind Pig is great. It is a roundtable discussion of the Washington Commanders. It's like you and a bunch of your buddies who are Washington fans are hanging out and talking about the team. The conversation is smart and fun and respectful. The latest episode is a terrific 2026 Washington Commanders draft recap. Enhance your Washington Commanders content via the BGO Blind Pig podcast. You can find the BGO Blind Pig podcast on YouTube and on any major podcast provider. Make BGObsession.com the home for your burgundy and gold obsession, and make the BGO Blind Pig podcast part of your Washington Commanders podcast rotation. We're talking with Washington Commanders analyst Mark Bullock of Bullock's Film Room, which you can find at markbullock.substack.com. In what ways does Sonny Styles most need to improve?
I think it's just continued development. I think you saw... and Adam Peters made a point of saying like he showed really good development throughout the year, and you could see that as you watched his games throughout the year, where at the start of the year there was still a few plays here and there where he was maybe a little bit tentative at the line of scrimmage, not sure exactly how he was fitting the run. There was a few plays where he gets caught out by misdirection and play action and that kind of thing, and that progressively got better throughout the year. Like by the end of the year, he was pretty solid all around. But there are still a few plays here and there where it's, a few misdirection plays where he's not quite in the right spot, or he's not quite sure of where he's going when there's pulling linemen going in different directions and exactly how he's meant to be fitting those runs. But more often than not, he was doing it right and he was getting it better and better. So I think it's just a continued development of another year of experience of playing linebacker. I think that's really where he's at. It's not a case of he's particularly bad at anything. It's just more experience will help him in that aspect. As I say, kind of in coverage, we didn't really see him do the man coverage stuff. And again, I don't think he'll be doing that in this defense. But if you wanted him to be this super well-rounded player that can do that, I think obviously it's something that he's athletically capable of doing. It's just not something he's been asked to do. So you have questions about that if you're trying to match up man to man. But again, they probably won't be asking him to do that too often. So I think the strength of his game matches up with what they will be asking him to do. I think it's just a case of he just needs more experience playing linebacker to continue that development. I think he's trending in the right direction.
I was just thinking this. So we usually think of a linebacker being better against the run than against the pass. Is Sonny Styles as a rookie likely to be better against the pass than against the run?
Potentially, yeah. You do get these safety converts to linebacker a little bit more frequently now, and typically those guys are a little bit more advanced in coverage, and they are a little bit more tentative against the run. What I would say to that is that Styles isn't tentative against the run. He's sometimes a little unsure of how he's meant to be fitting it, but when he reads it right, he goes and he is definitely willing to be physical. And I think that stands out about his game, is that you see a lot of safeties that convert to linebacker. They're sort of 220 pounds and they see a big offensive lineman climbing up to them and they're like, oh God, I don't want to get involved in that. And they try to work around it. Whereas Styles is, 245 pounds and he's more than willing to go and be physical with a guy and go pop them up and stack them up and shed the block. And so that stands out as a major difference, where I think he can be an impact run defender right away. He just needs to refine what he's looking at, what his keys are and what his reads are, and make sure that he is getting himself to the correct spot, but he will do that at 100 miles an hour with violence and physicality. So I think he can be a good run defender right away. But yeah, I think he's probably more advanced in the coverage aspect right now compared to his run defense, simply because he was a safety when he entered college.
Washington drafting Sonny Styles means what for the team's other prominent linebackers in Leo Chenal, Frankie, Luvu, and Jordan Magee?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. My initial thought was maybe they could use some base 4-3 looks. We've been expecting them to be a 3-4 defense, and if they want to just do that 3-4 defense that we saw them run in Minnesota under Flores and Daronte Jones, it would just be a case of, you plug in Styles as the Mike, and you have one of those other guys next to him, probably Leo Chenal. And then if you want to get a third one on the field, you could potentially put one of them on the edge in that kind of Van Ginkel role where they can play on the edge, they can drop off into coverage as kind of a linebacker, and you have that kind of upside. And maybe that would be Chenal that would do that role. Maybe it'd be Luvu. We saw Luvu do that kind of thing last year. But the alternative is you go with a 4-3, and I think they could do this at certain points in certain packages and certain looks they want to get to, where you have Sonny Styles as your Mike linebacker, and then you have both Chenal and Luvu either side of him. And then that gives you the flexibility that you can have your 4 down linemen, you've got your 3 linebackers behind them. If you get a look or a personnel package that you're like, actually, we want to get into a 3-4 look rather than our 4-3 defense, you can shift both Chenal or Luvu down to the line of scrimmage and play them on the edge, because that's what they've both been able to do. So you can get into you can shift your front across, you can walk down one of those guys to the edge, and then suddenly you've got your 5-man front, the same look as that 3-4, and you've got your 2 linebackers, which would be Styles and the other of Luvu and Chenal behind them. So they could get into those kind of flexible looking fronts with a 4-3 personnel. So I think that's another path they potentially could go down. I think they probably will at certain points, but I think they will maintain that flexibility that they want to with their base 3-4 defense, because they want to be able to line up everyone on the line of scrimmage and kind of blitz guys and drop guys off, and you need that flexibility with those edge guys to do that. So I think there's just a lot of different looks that they can give now. I think the one that probably misses out most is Jordan Magee, because he was the guy that was potentially going to be that Mike linebacker for them, and I think that's probably going to be Sonny Styles' job now. So can Jordan Magee play the kind of will spot? Sure, that's what he has been doing. Could he be another one that could maybe transition to the edge potentially, but you're then trying to teach him to rush the passer again? So that there's development there that would be needed. So I think he's probably the one that misses out. But I think the other two, I think you'll see them kind of shifting in their roles, playing next to Styles, but also sometimes playing on the edge and being flexible like that.
Joshua Josephs, a lot of variance in the opinions on him. What do you make of him?
Yeah, I actually quite like him. What I want to get out of the way up front is that he is very, very raw technically, and there's every chance that a player like that never develops into anything consistently like good in the NFL. There is, so I want to get that caveat out of the way. But you're talking about a guy that they've taken the 5th round that has a lot of really good traits, and he is a quite a good scheme fit. He's the way his play style suggests he's got like a high motor and a high effort guy. So you combine those factors and you think there's a chance he could work out. So we'll start with the traits. Super long, 34 plus inch arms, something like a 7-foot wingspan. I've read, like in college they listed him with a 7-foot wingspan, which is insane. And that can be a real issue for offensive linemen to try to keep themselves clean and keep him off of them. The problem is he doesn't utilize that length the way he should. Like, he occasionally gets it right, and when he gets it right, you see him get those arms into guys, lock out at extension, and offensive linemen just can't reach him, and he's devastating when he does that. He just doesn't do it very frequently. He doesn't do it very often. It's like, I've got this superpower, I don't know how to use it. So it's a little bit frustrating, but the trait is there. He's got a really good first step quickness, and he can come off the edge and really challenge an offensive lineman off the edge because of that first step quickness. But he doesn't necessarily have the hand fighting techniques and the bend around the edge to help him make most advantage of that. So he'll get level with an offensive lineman very quickly, but they will just stick their outside arm at him and quite often catch him because he doesn't have the kind of hand swipe or the cross chop or the different kind of techniques that you see quite often, where they clear the hands off the offensive lineman and that clears out that path to get the edge and turn the corner. He doesn't use those hand fighting techniques. He's, as I say, he's very raw with those techniques to be able to clear those hands off of him. But again, the first step quickness isn't something you can really coach. You can coach the hand fighting stuff. And so that's another really good trait. He's also someone that I think he's measured 6'3", 242 pounds. Now, if you look at the profile of those Minnesota Vikings edge guys, Andrew Van Ginkel is 6'4", 242. Dallas Turner, who they took in the first round a few years ago, is 6'3", 245 or something like that. So he's right in that profile of what they have on the edge. And those guys, while they're good edge rushers, they also have the capability of dropping off into coverage. And that was something that you saw Josephs do quite a bit at Tennessee as well, where he could drop into coverage, he could sit into his zone, he could wall off defenders, wall off crossing routes with kind of match concepts. And you could see him being able to, drop into his zone, pass a guy up the seam, peel off and redirect to a crossing route from the other side of the field. So he's not just like a passive coverage defender. He can kind of tell and understand what's going on and match his coverage to the routes that are coming his way. So I think that's some real upside there, that he not only has the athletic ability to drop into coverage, but he shows that he has an understanding of being able to do it. So, and that we kind of talked about it with Van Ginkel in this defense. It's a very specific role. It's a very hard role to play because you have to be good as a run defender, you have to be good as a pass rusher, but you also have to be good dropping into coverage and capable of doing that. And he has that trait of being able to drop into coverage as well as being a potentially pretty good pass rusher. So the traits are all there. And then when you watch his play style, he's a real high motor guy. Like, there are multiple plays on film where you see the other defenders are kind of giving up on the rush, but he chases down quarterbacks. Like, when quarterbacks scramble out to the edge, you see quite a lot of defensive ends kind of give up chasing him from the backside. He chases those guys down, and he had a forced fumble in one game where he was chasing a quarterback that was scrambling to the left and they were about to throw the ball away and most guys would have given up, and he kind of jumped and dived and swatted down, used that arm length to reach out and swat the ball out and cause the forced fumble. And that's the kind of effort plays that you see from him quite consistently on film. So when you think about a guy that has a lot of really good traits, that can fit the scheme, that has the body type that fits the scheme, and he has that kind of high motor play style, you think about a guy that has a good chance of developing and being successful. Now, right away, he's not going to be 10 sack a season, really good coverage, Andrew Van Ginkel clone, right? But he's someone that over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, with some work on his pass rush skills and some development in techniques, learning, as I talked about, the hand fighting moves, the swipes, the cross chops, making use of his length, teaching him a long arm rush, and helping him develop a pass rush plan where he has a sequencing of moves of how to set up tackles and beat them. If you're able to teach him that stuff, which theoretically you can, then you've got a guy that, as a fifth-round pick, is a really good project to work on. So I'm quite high on him, but with the caveat of, those techniques don't always stick with guys. Some guys don't ever learn those things, and if he doesn't, then he's not going to be a hell of a lot as a pass rusher. But I bet on the upside and the work ethic and the play style.
Washington Commanders analyst Mark Bullock of Bullock's Film Room, which you can find at markbullock.substack.com. Mark, thanks, and we'll talk soon.
Of course, talk soon.
All right, whatever big event that you're planning, a wedding, a party, whatever, consider using a great sponsor of this podcast, cateringbyuptown.com. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. Catering by Uptown is outstanding. It is a family business. It is run by the Pereiras, who are great Washington Commanders fans. Catering by Uptown is committed to meeting your every need with elegance and precision. Catering by Uptown takes care of every detail so that you can enjoy your event, and Catering by Uptown's specialty is weddings. Get excellent service at an affordable price. In fact, if you visit cateringbyuptown.com and click on venues, you could check out Catering by Uptown's premier wedding venues. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. That's cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. Look, choosing life insurance is tricky. Heck, life insurance as a topic can be uncomfortable, but Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. You'll get your lowest rate from Ethos' network of trusted carriers. And know this, Ethos has a rating of 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 4,000 reviews. Take 10 minutes today to get covered with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/Al Galdi. That's ethos.com/Al Galdi. Ethos.com/Al Galdi. Application times may vary. Rates may vary. You can always email me, the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. I early Wednesday afternoon got this email from Mark Haggerty. Writes Mark, Al, I know what a fan you are of anniversaries, so here is one I really love. Did you know that April 30th is the 9th anniversary of the most incredible offensive performance the Nationals have ever had? The Washington Nationals played the New York Mets at Nationals Park and absolutely pulverized the Mets 23-5. Yes, many runs were scored against a powerful Noah Syndergaard, and Anthony Rendon made the most of the game by going 6 for 6 with 3 home runs and, get this, 10 RBI against the New York Mets. I'll never forget this game and was amazed at what a dominant offensive performance actually looks like. So here's to you, Anthony, and thank you for that great memory 9 years ago. Go Nats. Thank you very much for the email, Mark. This episode of the podcast is for Thursday, April 30th, the 9-year anniversary of the Anthony Rendon game. April 30th, 2017, a 23-5 Nats win over the New York Mets at Nationals Park. Rendon, as the Nats starting third baseman and number 6 batter, went 6 for 6 with 10 RBI. He had 3 home runs, a double, and 2 singles, 16 total bases. An amazing performance. Well, the Nats on Wednesday night just happened to be playing at the Mets, and while the Nats did not score 23 runs, the Nats did put forth a dominant offensive performance. A 14-2 win at the Mets on Wednesday night in Game 2 of a 3-game series. So this was a game in which we had rain for much of the game, but never had a rain delay. This was a game in which the Nats scored 7 runs in the top of the 4th, and that was off the Nats in their 8-0 loss at the Mets on Tuesday night, allowing 7 runs in the bottom of the 4th. The Nats in MLB's 2026 regular season now are 14-17, 11-7 on the road versus 3-10 at home. That home road disparity is something, man. 3-10 at home, 11-7 on the road. The Mets, they in this regular season now are an MLB worst 10-20. So the Nats over their previous 5 games had totaled just 14 runs, but the Nats on Wednesday night scored 14 runs. The Nats in this game were excellent offensively. 14 runs, 15 hits, which were 2 home runs, 4 doubles, and 9 singles, 6 walks, 7 for 17 with runners in scoring position. The Nats did strike out 15 times, but strikeouts don't matter so much when you hit like the Nats hit in this game. The Nats ripped the Mets starting pitcher David Peterson. He officially allowed 7 runs in 3 2 2/3 innings. Brady House, he is the Nats starting third baseman and number 3 batter, went 1 for 5 with a grand slam and a walk. House in the Nats 7-run fourth had a 2-out grand slam to left center field for a 9-1 Nats lead. Good to see that. House has had a bad last few weeks to where his OPS for this regular season, even with what he did on Wednesday night, is down to 652, but he hit the grand slam. James Wood, he is the Nats starting DH and number 1 batter, went 2 for 5 with a 2-run double, a single, and a bases-loaded walk. Wood in the Nats 7-run fourth drew a 2-out bases-loaded walk for a 4-1 Nats lead despite having been down in the count at 1.02. Wood in the Nats 3-run seventh had a win-out 2-run double to the right center field gap for a 12-2 Nats lead. James Wood for this regular season now has an OPS of 959. C.J. Abrams, he is the Nats starting shortstop and number 4 batter, went 3 for 4 with 2 RBI singles, another single, and a walk. Abrams in the Nats 2-run first had a 1-out RBI single through the right side of the infield on an 0-2 pitch for a 1-0 Nats lead. Abrams in the Nats 1-run sixth had a 1-out RBI single into right field on a 1-2 pitch for a 10-2 Nats lead. C.J. Abrams for this regular season now has an OPS of 918. And Curtis Mead got on base 5 times. He is the Nats starting first baseman and number 2 batter, went 4 for 5 with a solo homer, a double, 2 singles, and a bases-loaded hit by pitch. Curtis Mead for this regular season, 70 plate appearances, OPS of 798. A great example of the Nats' new analytics-based process really working well offensively. Mead has been productive when he has played. He has been deployed exactly the right amount and has produced when he has been deployed. And so here we are with the Nats in this season, number 1 of a restarted rebuild. According to Cott's baseball contracts, the Nats and Mets have the following projected year-end 40-man payrolls for this regular season. Nats, $95.1 million. Mets, $362.6 million. And yet, we in this regular season have the Nats at number 2 in MLB in runs, 170, and the Mets at number 29 out of 30 MLB teams in runs, 102. So much for that payroll disparity. But as good as the Nats offense was in this 14-2 win at the Mets on Wednesday night, you could argue that the biggest bright spot for the Nats in this game was their starting pitcher, Cade Cavalli. He was good for a second consecutive outing. Cavalli in the Nats 7-2 loss to the Atlanta Braves at Nationals Park this past Thursday afternoon, April 23rd, allowed 2 runs in 5 innings with 10 strikeouts versus no walks. And Cavalli on Wednesday night allowed 2 runs in 6 innings with 10 strikeouts. He became the first Nats pitcher to generate at least 10 strikeouts in each of at least 2 consecutive regular season appearances since Max Scherzer in July 2020. Not since Mad Max nearly 6 years ago has a Nats pitcher done what Cade Cavalli now has done. He on Wednesday night did give up 8 hits, which were a home run, a double, and 6 singles. He issued 2 walks and a wild pitch. He put some guys on base, but he threw a lot of strikes, 97 pitches, 69 strikes, just 28 balls, and 30 of his 97 pitches came in the first inning. He, over his final 5 innings, threw just 67 pitches. Cavalli tossed a scoreless bottom of the first, despite giving up a double and issuing 2 walks. As he, in that inning, threw 30 pitches. His outing began with him being pitch inefficient, something that has been a problem for him, no doubt, but he was a lot better over his final 5 innings. So the 2 runs that he allowed, Cavalli in the bottom of the third allowed a run as he gave up a 1-out first pitch opposite field solo homer by ex-Nat Juan Soto to left field to cut the Nats lead to 2-1, and Cavalli in the bottom of the 5th allowed a run on 3 consecutive singles to begin that half inning. But bottom line, Cade Cavalli, 2 runs in 6 innings with 10 strikeouts. Cavalli now in this regular season, 7 games, all starts, ERA of 3.82, whip of 1.66. He is lucky to have an ERA under 4 with a whip that high, but also high is his strikeouts per 9 innings, 11.15. He has 38 strikeouts in 30 2/3 innings. And the Nats relief pitching in this 14-2 win at the Mets on Wednesday night was good. 3 Nats relievers combined for 3 scoreless innings. Cianel Perez tossed a perfect bottom of the 7th. Paxton Schultz tossed the scoreless bottom of the 8th despite giving up back-to-back one-out singles, and P.J. Poulin tossed a perfect bottom of the 9th. Great win for the Nats. Here was manager Blake Butera during his post-game session with reporters late night on Wednesday night, and then you'll hear a follow-up exchange between my co-host on the Nats Chat podcast, Nats insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com, and Butera, and then you'll hear a follow-up exchange between Nats insider Jessica Camarado of Nationals.com and Butera.
I mean, Cade was outstanding again. Back-to-back 10 strikeout nights for him, or 10 strikeout starts for him. Huge. Just want to see him continue to build on that and hopefully get this momentum rolling and continue to do what he's been doing. It's fun to watch. Then the offense, of course. Couldn't have been happier with our bats all night. I think, from the beginning till we got the sizable lead, they just continued to have really good at bats all the way through the 9th inning. A lot of good to talk about. These nights are always fun.
Cade had that long first inning, 30 pitches, has to get through it. I know sometimes that has led to other long innings. For him to then bounce back and then be able to go 6 and keep it under 100 pitches, what does that tell you about?
Yeah, it was huge. I think it was that second inning, it was pretty quick, which was a huge bounce back for him after that first inning being pretty long. I think just the ability to flush and learn from that first inning and then come back and be able to give a 6, like you said, when someone has that high of a pitch count in the first, it's always really good when they're efficient the next several innings, which Cade was tonight. Thought he did a great job. The stuff looked great all the way through and was huge for us, obviously, getting through 6.
What have you seen from Cade from spring training when you got to know him to now, where he's able to flush an inning like that and move on? Yeah,
I think it just goes with, the getting more starts under his belt. I know we talked about earlier, just he doesn't have a ton of starts to be able to look back at things and kind of learn on the fly and make adjustments, in game like he's doing now. It's a huge testament to Cade, huge testament to our pitching coaches, just the conversations they continue to have with Cade and that Cade has back with them. And he just keeps learning from every outing and honestly learning from every inning and able to make adjustments going through that.
Yeah, man, Cade Cavalli looking good. And how about Nats starting pitchers lately? Some really nice outings. Cade Cavalli, as mentioned, he in the 7-2 loss to the Atlanta Braves at Nationals Park this past Thursday afternoon, April 23rd. 2 runs in 5 innings, 10 strikeouts, no walks. Jake Irvin, he in the 6-3 10-inning win at the Chicago White Sox this past Saturday, April 25th. Tossed 5 2/3 scoreless innings with 9 strikeouts versus no walks. Foster Griffin, he in the 2-1 10-inning win at the Chicago White Sox this past Sunday afternoon, April 26th. Tossed 7 scoreless innings with 8 strikeouts. And now we have what Cavalli did on Wednesday night. 4 high-level outings from Nats starting pitchers over the last 6 games. Game 3 for the Nats at the Mets Thursday afternoon at 1:10. Miles Mikolas will be the Nats starting pitcher, although, as we have come to know, what may be the case is that the Nats go with an opener with Mikolas as a bulk pitcher. We'll see. And that'll do it for you and me for now, but there's more to come. Friday's show, episode 1316, we'll have much more on the Washington Commanders. Also on Friday's show, I'll talk Washington Nationals and Baltimore Orioles. The Nats are at the New York Mets Thursday afternoon at 1:10 for Game 3 of a 3-game series. The O's are home to the Houston Astros for a traditional single-admission doubleheader beginning on Thursday afternoon at 12:35 for Games 2 and 3 of a 3-game series. Have a great rest of your Thursday, and I'll talk to you on Friday.
We are a very bad basketball team.
Yeah.
For sure. On the flip side, I think it's very tough to go from bad team to like a championship contender. It takes time.